the County Member of Parliament for Kericho County, on 21st February 2023, sought a statement from the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Labor, regarding sexual harassment of female workers in various tea estates in Kericho County. In the statement request, the member stated that female workers in the various tea estates in Kericho County lived...
Honorable Member, if you could kindly remove the motion as it is in the order paper, then proceed to articulate it. Give him a copy.
I beg to move that. Can you read all of it, then you got it.
Okay. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopt the report on the Departmental Committee on Labor on the inquiry regarding sexual harassment of female workers in tea estates in Kericho County, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 23rd March 2023. Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Beatrice Kemei, Member of Parliament for Kericho County, on 21st February 2023, sought a statement from the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Labor regarding sexual harassment of female workers in various tea estates in Kericho County. In the statement request, the member stated that the female workers in various tea estates in Kericho County lived and worked in deplorable working conditions and were victims of sexual abuse in the hands of their male bosses. An expose by BBC Africa, a documentary by the British Broadcasting Company BBC entitled Sex for Work, The True Cost of Our Tea, was aired on 20th of February 2023, in which two companies, namely James Finley Kenya and Ekaterra Lipton Teas and Infusions, formerly Unilever, were reported as having witnessed incidences of sexual harassment and exploitation. In addition, several anonymous females featured in the documentary named 4 persons, male persons, 2 in each of the companies, named as the perpetrators of the acts. Following the requests for statement, the committee resolved to conduct an inquiry into the allegations of sexual abuse and table a report in the House with a view to having the report debated, adopted, and recommendations forwarded to the concerned agencies for implementation. This was besides facilitating the issuance of a response by the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection for reporting to the House by the chairperson. The decision of the committee to conduct an inquiry into the matter was informed by Standing Order 216(5)(e), which mandates the departmental committees to investigate and inquire into all matters relating to the assigned ministries and departments as they may be deemed necessary and as may be referred to them by the House. So, Madam Speaker, the committee set its terms of reference for the inquiry as follows. 1, to establish if there is concrete information on the allegations of sexual harassment of female workers in the various tea estates in Kericho County. 2, to establish the measures the government is putting in place to protect the rights of female workers in these tea estates. Number 3, to establish the measures the government is putting to place to ensure these tea estates adhere to labor laws and implement policies on sexual harassment. To establish the status of investigations into the heinous act to ensure that culpable perpetrators are brought to book and justice is served. Madam Speaker, the committee carried out public participation in accordance with the requirements of the Article 118 of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010. The committee identified the following stakeholders whom it requested to make submissions on the matters under inquiry. And these stakeholders were: 1, the County Security Team of Kericho, which included the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, the National Police Service, the National Intelligence Service, the County Commissioner. 2, the National Labor Commissioner Office and State Department for Labor and Skills Development. Number 3, the County Labor Officer, Kericho County. Number 4, the management of James Finlay Kenya Limited. Number 5, the management of Ekatera Lipton Teas and Infusions. Number 6, the shop stewards at James Finlay Kenya Limited. Number 7, the shop stewards, Ekatera Lipton Teas Infusions. Number 8, the Assistant General Secretary, Central Organization of Trade Unions, COTU. Number 9, the branch secretaries, Kenya Plantation and Agricultural Workers Union of the counties of Kericho at Bomet. And number 10, Mr. Speaker, the victims of the sexual harassment, if they consented to make their submissions to the committee. Mr. Speaker, the committee conducted public hearings in Kericho County on 3rd and 4th March 2023, during which it held meetings and had submissions from the aforementioned stakeholders. Both oral and written submissions were made to the committee by those who testified. Analyzed the submissions received, the outcome of which informed its findings and recommendations. During the conduct of the inquiry, the committee faced challenges that included the witness who went by the Labour Office to speak in camera to the committee on the allegations declined and referred to their lawyer. The nature of the allegations made it difficult to receive witnesses, information including from the shop stewards and the union. And Mr. Speaker, this is due to the stigmatization that comes with reporting sexual related offenses. Mr. Speaker, the issues of determination, the issue for determination are as per the terms of the reference of the inquiry as set out by the committee based on the evidence on record, which is from the testimonies from the witnesses and the stakeholder. The committee analyzes the testimonies and determines the issue as follows. 1, to establish if there is concrete information on the allegations of sexual harassment of female workers in the various tea estates in Kericho. And Mr. Speaker, from the submissions, the county security team had yet to interrogate the BBC reporter who made the expose. The county security team reported that they had communicated with the DCI headquarters forensic laboratory to obtain the full information of the reporter to facilitate his interrogation. The committee expressed its dissatisfaction with the slow pace this was taking. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, the victims of the sexual harassment cases were not reporting the abuse, and the 2 tea companies reported that they did not have knowledge of the extent of the violations until the expose of the BBC Africa Eye was aired. At the time of the visit by the committee, there were no incidents reports on the allegations of the sexual harassment with the police on the 4 alleged perpetrators, namely Jeremiah Koskei, Mr. Samuel Ebei, who worked for Ekatera Teas and Infusions, Mr. John Chepochok, and John Asava, who worked at James Finlay Kenya. Mr. Speaker, James Finlay Kenya terminated the contract agreement with John Chepochok's company, which is called Silso Holdings. They have also suspended Mr. John Asava. The company has barred Mr. John Chepochok and Mr. John Asava from entering James Finlay Kenya premises. Ekatera Teas and Infusions reported that they had suspended Mr. Jeremiah Koskei and Mr. Samuel Ebei and barred the 2 named persons from accessing Ekatera Tea and Infusions premises. And this, Mr. Speaker, was to prevent them from interfering with the process of investigations. Mr. Speaker, this is evidence on record that Mr. Sylvia Den, who is the regional managing director, acknowledged that incidences of sexual harassment were happening in Ekatera Lipton Teas and Infusions. However, since taking up the position in 2019, she has put measures and created awareness to mitigate the incidences. The company is working towards a 0% rate of gender-based violence in the tea estates. Further, the company doesn't outsource any labor except the security services. Number 5, Mr. Speaker, the shop stewards at Ekaterra Tea and Infusions distinguished between incidences of unwelcome sexual harassment and incidences of sex for work, where the sex for work was sought for opportunities for employment, promotions, lighter duties, being graded, thus increase in pay. However, no written submissions were presented on the specific incidences or names of persons affected. Mr. Speaker, the committee observed that although there are sexual harassment policies, trainings and reporting channels available, reporting was minimum, which makes it difficult to address the instances. From the foregoing, the committee finds that there is credible evidence on record that there is sexual harassment in some tea estates in Kericho County, and that though there are sexual harassment policies, trainings and reporting channels available, reporting was very minimum. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, to establish the measures the government is putting in place to protect the rights of workers in these tea estates, the committee noted that there is gender office within the grounds of Kericho Police Station, whose independence was in question, having been funded by the James Finlay's Kenya Tea Estate. However, the county security team informed the committee that James Finlay only provided the funds for construction of the center. The center is fully manned by the police officers and is independent of the James Finlay Kenya Limited. The company, Mr. Speaker, had that the community policing as an avenue of reporting information related to sexual harassment and abuse appeared not to be very active, as the incidences of sexual harassment continued happening but not reported. The county security team submitted that there is the community policing and the Nyumba Kumi initiative at the ward level to enable the citizenry report various issues including gender-based violence. Mr. Speaker, the effectiveness of the various channels put in place to deal with sexual harassment and abuse appears to be poor. Both James Finlay and Ekaterra submitted that all employees have access to reporting mechanisms, which include welfare committees, toll-free anonymous call numbers, bulk SMS messages for mass communication, use of notice boards, use of suggestion boxes, training of village committees on sexual harassment and other forms of abuse, among others. The company is committed to continuously improve the system. Mr. Speaker, we also noted, and this is important for the women leaders in this House to hear, that there are few women in leadership positions at James Finlay, Kenya. The composition of women leadership is at 25%, 29% at the lower management level, 19% at the higher management level, 6% at junior management level, and 24% at senior level management. James Finlay management submitted that it conducts gender surveys and that there is continued effort to be female gender inclusive through management trainees programs for women and training of women in ICT. The criteria is to outsource labor services at James Finlay was unclear. The company submitted that it conducts a pre-qualification exercise for the services. Services outsourced include labor, maintenance and construction. However, it was disputed that by the labor unions who accused the company of directly procuring the services of the accused persons, company called Silso Holdings. The committee also observed that the government has instituted measures to guard against sexual harassment abuses. These include the enactment of Sexual Offences Act and the Employment Act, the community policing, the presence of police station, labor and gender offices in counties, and other initiatives aimed at enabling women seek guidance on the rights and launch complaints against sexual harassment. The committee nonetheless noted that many women were not aware of the initiatives and therefore not making use of them. Mr. Speaker, On the issue of establishing the measures the government is putting in place to ensure that these tea estates adhere to labor laws and implement policies on sexual harassment, the committee observed that there is a gap in the frequency of reporting the sexual harassment incidences despite the documented available reporting channels. There is a need for collaborative effort by the stakeholders, which are the Labor Department, the trade unions, the legislators, to come up with a clear and better framework for reporting. Number two, Mr. Speaker, the outsourcing of employees through contracts was a weak link in enforcing the sexual harassment policies. For instance, at James Finley, the alleged perpetrator, Mr. John Chepochok, owes Sislo Holding, a company contracted to provide contracted labor to James Finley. The contract company is in charge of performance and retention of employees. The competition for the available scarce employment opportunities for placement leaves the employees prone to exploitation and harassment. The committee resolved to initiate legislation to govern outsourcing of labor services. Mr. Speaker, Ekaterra Tea and Infusions has 43% of female supervisors and managers, and we are working towards increasing the number to 50%. The committee commended this, but cautioned against discrimination against male gender competing for the same positions. Further, it advised that the influence and ability to effect change of the female supervisors and managers should be empowered to effectively root out the vice. The committee finds that whereas workers acknowledged that there are policies to ensure adherence to labor laws, the same workers cited frustrations in reporting cases since the culprits were never brought to book. Consequently, many of them no longer report the cases to authorities. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, to establish investigations into the heinous acts and to ensure the culpable perpetrators are brought to book and justice, the committee noted that the investigations by the DCI into the allegations of sexual harassment and exploitation were progressing slowly. Further, the Kericho County Security Team reported that they are yet to interview the BBC journalist who made the documentary to receive any evidence on the incidences as reported in the documentary at the time of the visit of the committee. The 4 persons named in the documentary as the perpetrators had not been arrested nor charged in court of law, since no victim had filed complaints against them to the police. The labor officer, Kericho County, did not report the frequency of their visits to the tea estates on matters sexual harassment. There is 1 labor officer in the whole county, and this may affect the quality and quantity of his visits. So, Mr. Speaker, based on these findings, the committee made a number of recommendations that the Directorate of Criminal Investigation should fast-track their investigations to identify the victims of the alleged sexual harassment and bring those culpable to book. 2, Mr. Speaker, the victims of the sexual harassment in the tea estate should report the incidences to the police for investigation and criminal prosecution. 3, Mr. Speaker, the victims of the sexual harassment should report the incidences to the county gender office and the county labor office. So, Mr. Speaker, we have made available the report to members, and I beg now to table the reports